people for Jesus so we can make heaven crowded. All right. Man, the reason we're here is that 7,755 people die in the U.S. every single day, and most of them don't have a relationship with Jesus. It's a staggering number. I don't know about you guys, right? Like, I've been in ministry a long time. I got saved when I was 13 years old. I got called into the ministry a month later, right? I remember, like, it was 2 weeks before my freshman year of high school. I got saved 2 weeks into my freshman year of high school. I was praying and I was asking the Lord what he wanted me to do with my life. And he said, preach the word. And I was like, boom, got it. Right. So by the time I was 13 years old, I started preparing. So I was in youth ministry for 15 years. I love that. I've been a worship leader for 19. And I've been able to kind of live my dream of helping pastors and churches here for about the last full time for about the last 5 years, which has been really, really cool. This number is why I work with churches and why I do ministry stuff and why I don't work with like dentists or chiropractors, right? I can actually make a lot of money running Facebook ads for like doctors and those guys. The thing is, I've actually tried, like I helped out my chiropractor, but I love the guy because he's a good friend, but I just didn't care if he got more appointments, right? I didn't care. Like, I ran ads for a Mercedes dealership one time. And unfortunately, the 20-year-old girl that they put over just wasn't very bright. And I had a hard time because I was like, ultimately, I don't care if you guys sell more Mercedes, right? Because there's people who are lost and dying and going to hell because 7,755 people die in the U.S. every single day. And most of them don't have a relationship with Jesus. Right. So that's the reason that I do what I do. Like, I'm not up here. I don't have anything to sell. I'm not trying to convince you guys to do anything you don't want to do. I'm just going to share with you some of what has worked for me and for some of the churches that I've been blessed enough to work with. And then you can kind of pray about and consider whether or not you think some of those things might work for you. Cool. Okay. All right. So we're going to make heaven crowded. This is one of my favorite scriptures. Go out to the highways and hedges and compel them to come in that my house may be full. I think a lot of times it's easy to overlook the word compel, but that's the action word, right? We have to compel people, which isn't just invite them to come in. We have to give them a compelling reason to come in. All right. So one of the things that I think is worth addressing, because I hear this a lot, right? Are people still on Facebook? Right. So we've got so many different platforms out there, right? That it's like, oh, but people tell me all the time, Abbott, man, that's awesome, dude. But nobody's on Facebook anymore, right? Everyone's moved on to TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat and all these different things. And here's the deal. A lot of them are on a lot of different platforms. But here's just a couple of interesting stats. There are 2.9 billion people still on Facebook. It's about half the globe, in case you're wondering. 1.9 billion still log in every single day. And the average user spends 34 minutes a day on Facebook. Okay, so think about this. If there was a place in your city where every single person went to for at least 34 minutes a day, right? All you would do is set up shop there and invite people to church, right? Like, if there was like a Quick Trip or a gas station or a town square or a grocery store, you would just set up shop there and invite people to church. Here's the deal. Mark Zuckerberg has given us that opportunity with Facebook because every single person, right, spends an average of 34 minutes a day on Facebook. The largest age demographic on Facebook is people ages 25 to 34. How many of you guys are trying to reach young families? Anybody in here? Cool. This is where they are on Facebook. 31% of them, right? 18 to 24-year-olds, the one that everybody thinks are off on all the other platforms, make up 23% of Facebook, which means that people ages 18 to 35 make up 54% of Facebook, or 1.5 billion people. Okay? So it's still worth addressing and considering using as an outreach strategy. The average user clicks on 12 Facebook ads a month, right? Because I know a lot of times like, oh, well, whenever I see those, I don't click on ads. The great thing is if you do this right, people won't even realize your ads are ads. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. And just know that people are, even if you don't, the average user still clicks on 12 different Facebook ads per month, every single month. All right, so we're going to be covering two strategies today. The first one is what I call an invite funnel, how to use Facebook ads to just invite people to your church. The second one is a prayer funnel. Okay, so this first one's more of a marketing strategy. The second one is more of a ministry strategy. Okay, so I always get asked this too, like, hey, does this stuff actually work, right? So this is a text from one of the pastors I get to work with. His name's Jamie. He texted me this, said, hey, fun fact, January to April, we averaged 80 per week. The last 4 weeks using Facebook ads, we've averaged 157 people, nothing like doubling in 1 month. Thanks for all you do. Man, here's another pastor said, families keep pouring in, man. We've learned so much about marketing and the follow-up process in the last 2 months. The room was packed today for our big outreach. The momentum keeps building. Thanks for the great plan and content. All right, so let's talk about the invite funnel. For those of you guys who want new families pouring in the front door and you'd like for that to be your story, or you just like to pour gasoline on the bonfire and just have even more families that are already coming in, I'm going to throw out a couple of strategies here for you to consider. This first one is called the invite funnel. Kind of looks like this, right? First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna set up a Facebook ad that people are gonna see while they're scrolling on Facebook, right? They're gonna click on that. They're gonna go to a landing page set up on your church website. From there, they'll have the opportunity to sign up for Plan Your Visit, right? And then after they go through Plan Your Visit and come to your church, we're gonna plug them into a follow-up system, okay? Pretty simple 4-step funnel, Facebook ads to a landing page where they can plan a visit. We're gonna put them into a follow-up system. All right, so here is the funnel. This is what some Facebook ads actually look like. Okay, this is, and I have a lot of people ask about direct mail. I don't completely hate on direct mail, especially when you do some like really cool stuff using data like Carrie was talking about. I'm actually like super intrigued by some of the millennial stuff that he was doing. So Carrie, I may have to pick your brain later because that was pretty awesome, bro. Right, so I'm not completely against direct mail, but I do like to take a look, right, and see, okay, how do different types of marketing, different ways of getting the word out compare to other ones, right? So, for example, this was a church that I ran a Facebook ad for, right? And they, so we had Easter at their church. It was, actually forget the name of the church. I don't even know why I blacked it out, right? So, Easter at Faith Church, right? Live petting zoo and Pastor Jim's new series, Do Over, right? Come celebrate Easter with us. So here's what happened. This is a larger church, right? They run 2,000 people. This ad had 107,000 impressions or invites. We'll talk about that in just a second here. We reached 25,000 people, which means their frequency means the average person, right? 25,000 people saw this ad 107,000 times, which means the average person saw it 4 times, which is good because we don't want to just invite them once. We want them to see the ad multiple times. Right? They had over 1,100 clicks to their website. They only paid 37 cents per click. Right? Total investment was 433 bucks. And the result was that they had 3,500 people show up on Easter. So not too bad, right? 1,500 extra people on Easter for 400 bucks. All right, so to put that in perspective, if we had run a direct mail campaign to that same city and sent out 25,000 mailers, so remember we reached 25,000 people with the Facebook ad. Now, the good thing is we reached them, they saw the ad 4 different times on average. But if we sent out 25,000 mailers, it would have cost $9,465. All right. So with Facebook ads, we reached 25,386 people for $433. With direct mail, 25,000 mailers, $9,000. All right. So here's one of the things I like to do, like kind of a side-by-side comparison. So here's the cool part about this, right? Facebook ads are reached 25,000 people, direct mail, 25,000 mailers. But here's where it gets interesting. With Facebook ads, impressions, again, that's just the number of times people saw the ad, was 107,000. Now with the impressions of direct mail, we actually don't know, right? Because the average person throws away direct mail, right? I don't know about you guys. Like I have never once woke up in the morning and be like, good gracious, I can't wait till the mail comes today so I can check out my direct mail, right? I think about a lot of other stuff. That has never been one of them. You know, with not being able to track the impressions is kind of a problem, right? The frequency on Facebook ads is 4.23, right? We know the average person saw it a little over 4 times. The frequency on direct mail, right? Typically 1, if they look at it at all, they look at it right before they throw it in the trash can. In fact, and again, I'm not hating on direct mail, but I think it's worth looking into. So many churches use this, right? Another way to alternatively look at this is Facebook. Specifically, right, with direct mail, a lot of apartment complexes, because direct mail has become such an epidemic. If you guys any of you guys have lived in an apartment complex recently, you probably saw this. They start putting out giant trash cans in the mailroom just so people can throw away their direct mail after they go to the mailbox because they're sick of it littering the floor, right? So we go out and we put in all this time and effort. We pay like a designer or a company to build like this beautiful mailer, right, for like Easter and all these different things, right? And then apartment complexes are having to put out giant trash cans for people to throw our mailer in because they keep ending up on the floor. Okay, so website clicks with Facebook ads. We know that over 1,100 people went to our website to learn more about our Easter services. With direct mail, we don't really know how many of them went to the website. Your cost per 1,000 people reached is $17. Right? How many guys would love to pay $17 and invite 1,000 people to church? Right? We do that with Facebook ads. With direct mail, it would have been $183. Right? And then we know our cost per website click was 37 cents. On direct mail, obviously, we don't know. And again, I'm not hating on direct mail. I'm just showing you guys a couple of the stats when you compare Facebook ads to direct mail. Now, we talked about reach versus impressions. Again, in case you're interested, I just want to throw this slide up. Some people care about this, some people don't. You won't hurt my feelings at all. I'm a nerd. Like when Carrie was talking about data, see, data is my love language. Like I love numbers and I love data and I love looking at all those different things. Like I love like the demographics and figuring stuff out. Like I would love to just take some of Carrie's data and write 1 million Facebook ads on like all these like different things, whatever, and just run them to my church. Cause that's fun to me. So if you're like me, here's a couple of things. If you don't care, don't worry about it. But man, the reach is just the amount of people who see your ad. That is your reach. The impressions is the amount of times the ad was shown. And frequency is basically just how many times each person saw the ad on average. Oops, went backwards here by accident. So if 100 people, right, see the ad, that's your reach, and they see the ad a total of 200 times, the frequency would be 2. Does that make sense, right? The Facebook showed the ad 200 times to 100 different people. The average person saw it 2 times. So with Facebook ads, we knew that we reached 25,000 people in the community, right? Meaning they saw our ads 107,000 times. Now, it's important because how many of you guys have ever tried to invite a friend to church, right? And they don't come the first time? Man, I have I have some people in my life I've been inviting to church for 20 some years and they haven't made it yet, but I don't stop, right? And I've got some other friends, right, that every once in a while I call, like, man, I had a buddy of mine, Lord put him on my heart. And I knew he was going through kind of a messy divorce. And so I didn't call him up and say, hey, man, I just, BJ, I was really hoping like maybe, if you weren't busy on Sunday, if you didn't have like another place to be, or if you weren't planning on like sleeping in or eating eggs or anything, like maybe if you could come out to church, I'd love to have you like sometime. And I called him up. I just said, BJ, here's the deal. You're coming to church on Sunday, right? I was like, man, I'm going to pick you up at 10:30, right? Like I'll be there. I'm going to pick you up, man. I'm going to take you there. I'm going to buy your coffee. We'll swing by Starbucks. You're going to sit with me, man. And we're going to church on Sunday. We're going to hang out, right? Like, and he was like, cool, right? It was literally that easy. I sent a text, right? Boom. Right. And it was super, super easy. I think that is because, right, people need to be invited over and over and over again. And it wasn't like, so the cool thing was like, that wasn't the first time I'd invited to BJ, but I caught him at the right time. Boom. And he said yes. Right. So that's why having Facebook ads out there that are constantly running 24/7, right, and reaching people and inviting people out to church can be really, really powerful. Now, before we get into a couple more of the numbers, let me clarify a couple of things because Heather and I were talking. And Heather, thank you so much for that conversation by the coffee bar, because you made me think about several different things that I think we should probably clear up. All right. So number one is, why do we need to pay Facebook when we can just post on Facebook for free? Okay, anybody ever thought that before? Right, I'm curious, just by show of hands, how many of you guys have ever used Facebook ads before? Okay, great. Now, how many of you guys know the difference between a boosted post and a Facebook ad? Okay, awesome. So I'm curious, you guys just kind of, shout it out, like, how did the ads work? Did you see new visitors from those ads? Yeah, okay, perfect. Anybody else? Anybody waste a bunch of money on Facebook ads and not see any results? Okay, yeah, perfect. Because Facebook, right? Mark Zuckerberg is happy to collect your money and not give you any results in return. He doesn't care either way, right? He'd like for you to get results because you'll probably keep paying him, but he doesn't really care, right? And that's how Facebook is. So the interesting thing about Facebook, and this is, this is a little bit eye-opening, right? So if you guys have ever posted on your Facebook page, right, you go in there and you post about baptisms and baby dedications, right? And you're like, man, like we have 1,000 likes on our page. Why did nobody like see this, right? Like, I don't know about you guys. One of the things I hate more than anything at all is when we show up to church, we're like, we're doing baptisms today. I didn't even know. I'm like, dude, we sent out texts, we sent out emails, like we call people, we've announced in every single service, man, like we put on social media, right? Like we even boosted a post and let people know about it, right? What happens is right, one, there's just a lot of noise, right? A lot of us, especially if you've been in church for a while, we tend to tune out when the announcements come on. Like like one of the things I've realized, right? Like I'm at the church. I've been at my church for 17 years. I've been on staff. I still lead worship there. My kids go there. Like my brother-in-law is the assistant pastor. Like I've been there forever. And a lot of times when they start to like do the announcements, my wife and I start to talk like, hey, where are we going to lunch? Like, man, what are we doing this? Like, do we want to take the kids back? I don't know, Chase is a little bit crazy. Let's go. Right. And we're like going, and I'm like, dude. And then I'm like, oh man, I didn't even know that was going on. Like, dang it. Like, yeah. Cause like we were talking during the announcements. Well, the other reason is when you post on Facebook, Facebook only shows your post to about 3% of the people who like your page. Okay. So if you have 1,000 likes on your Facebook page and you post about baptisms and baby dedications, then out of those 1,000 people who like your page, Facebook shows your post to about 30 people. Okay. It's kind of a bummer. Right. But it makes sense if you think about it. Right. So the way they do it is if a bunch of people like it, like you say, hey, we've got, our brand new sermon series coming up this Sunday. Right. And people are like, oh, that's dope. And they start hitting that like button. Right. And now you can do like and you can do wow and you can do love and all that stuff. Right. Facebook takes all that data, all that information, and a like is pretty good. But then a comment is even better than that. Right. Because you're like, oh, man, I like this, but I'm also going to comment on it. Hey, super excited about this new sermon series, but a share is the holy grail of engagement on Facebook. Okay, because, and again, this makes sense, right? You have a page, which is your piece of real estate on Facebook. And if you say, I like this piece of content so much that I want to share it onto my real estate, my personal profile, so that all my friends and family can see this, Facebook knows, man, that's a big deal. Right. So what happens is that post gets a lot of social juice. So what happens is Facebook shows it to about 30 people. Right. And they're kind of testing to see how many people like, comment, and share that post. Right. And if it's not many, then they don't show it to anybody else. Right. But if all of a sudden we had this happen with a couple of years ago, I actually got in trouble for this because we're running all the marketing at the church. And it was a trunk or treat, right? So it was the whole thing was like, hey, Abbott, we're this year, we've done a lot of outreaches and stuff like that lately. This year for trunk or treat, we just want to keep it kind of internal, just for the families in our church, right? We're just gonna, it's like, okay, great, no problem, right? So I got there and we put a post out there. Hey, here's what's up, right? Hey, free candy. We're doing this costume contest. Boom. I didn't put any money behind it. Didn't do anything. It was an organic post that cost me $0 to post on our page. The problem was all of the parents saw that and they're like, this looks awesome. So they all start smashing the like button. Then a bunch of them comment like, can't wait for this. This is going to be awesome. Right. And then a bunch of them share it on their personal page. And then it went basically mini viral and exploded. And we had thousands of comments. And then when we showed up on the night of our trunk or treat, there was a line like half a mile long. I'm not joking, for everybody like to get in. And they're like, Abbott, what the heck did you do? We said no Facebook ads. I'm like, guys, that was organic. Like, this is what we wish happened whenever we invited people to church or posted about baby dedications or baptisms or right, like those types of things. Right. It's because Facebook's algorithm is looking. And as soon as we posted that, right, people said, oh, look at all the people who are liking, commenting, and sharing. Let's show this to more people, right, for free, because then they're going to like it. And that's exactly what happened, right? So two quick things in case you're looking to get more engagement. And we're not really going to talk about this a whole lot today because this is specifically about Facebook ads, which is getting new people into the church. But if you want to get more engagement with the people who like your page, right, you can do two things. Number one, you can make sure that when you create a post, you have to talk about what's in it for them. Okay. Meaning, and this is why, like when you say, hey, we've got our new sermon series, right? We're going to talk about, new beginnings starting this Sunday. It's going to be awesome. Invite your friends. Now, here's the deal. If I see that on there and I share that to my personal profile, are my friends and family going to think I'm cool or think I'm like in the know or anything like that because I invited them to a sermon series? No, if anything, they might be like, neutral, right? Like, oh, okay. Chris's church is doing a new sermon series, right? But if I'm like, hey, guys, come out to Easter. This is crazy. We're doing a helicopter candy drop. There's going to be a rooftop candy drop. There's a candy volcano. Taylor Swift is going to be there. Like, right? Like all of a sudden, like every single parent's like, what? I love Taylor Swift, right? And then they start like liking, commenting, and they share it on their personal profile because now all their friends and family think they're cool or in the know. It gives them social currency because they shared this really cool thing. And they know that if their friends go out to that, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, dude, dude, thank you so much. I've never met Taylor Swift before. That was amazing. She jumped out of a helicopter and threw Easter eggs at my kids. It was incredible, right? Thank you so much, right? And now I look cool because I shared that and they found out about it from me, right? Does that make sense? So it all comes down to social currency. So people share what makes them look good, right? At the end of the day, that's what it is. So if you're trying to get more engagement on your organic, meaning your free posts, you just have to share stuff that's going to make people look good. Otherwise, you're going to post and it's going to be a ghost town. Right. So you can post helpful things. So specifically, if you're trying to maybe reach a bunch of, you're trying to help more young families, right? Heather, I know you're saying like your kid's pastor, right? So one of the things that you could do is you could post really helpful parenting articles, right? Like, hey, I just saw this or whatever, and this totally helped my kids at bedtime or something like that, right? And then if that's a really good article, right, people click on it, then they're going to like it. They're going to comment on it. Oh my gosh, I tried this with my kids and it totally transformed bedtime last night. Then they're going to share it on their page. And Facebook says, wow, man, Heather's posted some really good stuff on her Facebook page, right? The last couple of posts didn't really do anything, but this next one did things, right? And then if you keep posting stuff like that, that's helpful to people and that makes them look good when they share it, right? Facebook will start organically, right, showing it to more people and you won't have to pay for it. Okay. Is that cool? Is that helpful? Right? A little bit. Okay. The second thing that you can do is you can have an army of volunteers or friends go in, and once you post something, if it's really important, you can't do this every single time or it won't work. But if you have something like your Easter services or something that you really want to get some traction, you can post it and then you can go tell your team, right? Within 5 minutes, if they go in and a bunch of people like, comment, and share that to their own personal profiles within the first like 5 minutes of posting it, then Facebook goes, ooh, people like this. And you kind of trick the algorithm, so to speak, right? And then they'll start showing it to more people, right? But if you do that too often, Facebook catches on, doesn't work, right? So, all right. Let's get back into some Facebook ad stuff. I like this because this is, oh, that red doesn't show up great. Okay, so this says McDonald's has a goal of 50 touches a week, right? So we're talking about multiple invites to people. McDonald's has a goal of 50 touches a week. They want you to have 50 interactions with their brand every single week, right? So whether that's a TV commercial, a radio spot, a billboard, a drive by the Golden Arches, right? A friend showing up with the McDonald's coffee cup, or even a coworker coming back from lunch holding a McDonald's bag, every single one of those is a touch with their brand. Okay, so Caleb and I actually just got back from Hawaii. We had our families on Oahu for the last 9 days, which is amazing. We got back super late Sunday night, tried to recover yesterday, and then drove down here today. One of the funny things was we went to a luau. I'm curious, has anybody ever been to a luau in Hawaii? Oh, okay. We've got a few people. Perfect. Okay, so we just happened. I don't know if they're all like this. This was my first one, but this big Hawaiian dude, like, not only like told about all like the culture and the history of like Hawaii and everything, and like the Hawaiian language, but like he was also really funny, like, and he kept cracking jokes. So like one of the things he was doing is he was showing us how to make fire. Hey, this is how we make fire in my village, right? And he's like doing all this different stuff. He's like, oh, I'm tired, right? And he keeps like trying to make fire, like rub the sticks together and all that stuff. He's like, and if we don't make fire, he's like, we don't eat, right? And then he's like, so we have to go to McDonald's and have chicken McNuggets. I'm loving it, right? And I just started cracking up laughing. I was like, here's this like Hawaiian dude who's like teaching about all this different stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, when we can't make fire at the village, man, we just run to Mickey D's and grab some nuggets, right? Which is what we do in my family too. So that kind of made me laugh, right? But he inserted the tagline, "I'm loving it," into that joke, right? And pretty much anywhere you go, right? If you go ba-da-ba-ba-ba, everyone knows I'm loving it. Right? Like we've all done it. So that is because they have branded themselves well, and because they have a goal of touching you 50 times a week with their brand. Now, here's the other thing. Okay, McDonald's has a marketing budget of $988 million. Okay, I Googled it. So I don't know about you guys. I don't have that kind of money at my church. So we have to be more strategic, right? It would be awesome if we could just put it on blast out there, right? Millions of dollars just inviting people to church, right? We just put up our church logo and people are like, oh yeah, like we pay some like musical genius to write like a jingle for our church. It's like, oh man, and we brand ourselves all over the community. That'd be amazing. If you guys have that kind of money, that's awesome, right? Go ahead and do that. I don't. So I have to be a little bit more strategic in my church, right? So the same thing is true with inviting people to your church, right? If you invite someone once, there's a chance they'll say yes, right? But if you invite that same person 10 times, there's a much better chance that they're going to say yes. And I know it's not rocket surgery, but it's important to talk about, right? So So I actually used to have a graphic, and somehow when I transferred the slides over, it deleted. But it's literally a picture of like a whole surgeon team around like a giant rocket or whatever, and they're doing surgery, and they're like, that's perfect. Right? Nothing like some rocket surgery. All right, so here's an ad that we ran for my church, kind of a funny name. It's called Guts Church. My pastor named it Guts because he says that's what it takes to live for Jesus. It takes guts. He planted the church back in the early 90s. So when I was on staff, this is one of the ads that I ran here. Now, again, this is a large church, right? And we had a bunch of like fun stuff that we decided to try to do that this particular year. And so I created this ad, right? I got 889,000 impressions. Oh, here, let's read the ad real quick. People always give me a hard time about this, so feel free. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. Join us this Easter for a helicopter candy drop, Easter egg hunt with 15,000 eggs, petting zoo, free ice cream, free candy, free coffee and donuts, and much more. You can expect incredible music and a relevant word from Pastor Bill Scheer. Dress however you want, drink coffee in the sanctuary, and meet some great people. Our kids' church has a rock wall, basketball court, a huge playground, and free ice cream every week. So bring your family Easter Sunday, April 16th at 9:30 or 11 a.m. We're saving a seat for you. Now, here's why I always get a hard time about this ad. Number one, people are like, a helicopter candy drop? Are you kidding me? But we knew a dude with a helicopter, so it's like, why not use it, right? The other thing is I told the church, I was like, hey, we have to be really specific. Like, it can't just be an egg hunt because everybody has an egg hunt, right? So I went to our kids director, said, how many eggs will we have at the Easter egg hunt? And they're like, a lot. I was like, cool. I can't say we're going to have a lot of eggs because people don't believe you, right? So I was like, how many specifically? And they're like, thousands. I was like, great. Go count the eggs and then come back and tell me how many eggs we're going to have. Right? Because here's the deal. And this is what's funny, right? This is a great hack for you on Easter if you guys are doing an Easter egg hunt. If you say we have an Easter egg hunt with 500 eggs, that sounds like a lot. Nobody's ever counted, right? Like, when did you ever right? But everyone else is like, we're having an egg hunt. But you say, hey, we're having an Easter egg hunt with 500 eggs. They're like, we're going to that one. That sounds like a lot of eggs. Right? So does 1,000 eggs or 1,500 eggs or 15,000 eggs. It actually doesn't matter as long as you just use the number, right? Does that make sense? So they came back and said, hey, there's about 15,000 eggs. I said, perfect, right? And I was like, hey, we also need a petting zoo just because I don't know about you guys. Like, my kids love petting animals. They think they're awesome. So I was like, we need a petting zoo. Like, where are we going? I was like, I don't know, Google it, right? Like, I just bring in a petting zoo. And so we did. So, and then people give me a hard time too, because like our kids' church has a bunch of different stuff, right? Again, the youth pastor, so our kids' building is like the old youth building. And when I first came to the church, when we were running about 300 or 400 people, we had this really adventurous youth pastor. I was just a youth leader at the time. His name was Jared Newman, an absolute stud, amazing man of God. And he just came in one day. He was like, man, I think we could turn that wall. He like looked at a wall back there, like about the height as the wall back here, and just said, man, I think we could make that a rock climbing wall, because he was into rock climbing, right? Like, not because it was like anything else. He just thought, man, I love rock climbing. I bet some kids would too, right? I was like, yeah, sure, right? We were running 50 or 60 kids in the youth group. And so he built a rock wall, and that was awesome, right? And then we started investing into different things like playgrounds and stuff, right? And so the thing is, my church, even though they'd been growing for years, was doing a really good job. They were doing a horrible job about talking about the things that they were doing, right? Everybody talked about inside the church, but nobody ever thought to say, hey, we've got a huge playground. We've got a rock wall for your kids. Like, hey, man, like we've got a basketball court, right? Like, and so all I did was just take the things that we were already doing well, and I put them on the outside to invite people. Right? Does that kind of make sense? Like, and here's my point. Every single one of you guys already has things you're doing really, really well. You just have to isolate them, right? And then put them on the outside and tell people about them. So for example, we have an early learning program, right? Which is like a Mother's Day out kind of thing, right? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. My wife teaches that. She teaches first grade. She's amazing. And all the kids, it's a really fun time. Well, we went out and we bought a playground for them, because whenever you have indoor recess with a bunch of kids, right, that can get a little crazy in the church. So we went out and we bought a playground, but strategically, instead of like putting that playground like in the back where nobody saw it, right? We had this like one, we're in a warehouse. So we had this loading dock that's got a bunch of windows in one area. So we transformed that area and we put that giant playground in front of the windows so that all the people that drive by could see it, right? Like, because it's like, hey, like, if you know somebody with a helicopter, use it, right? You got a bunch of windows, put a playground in front of it. Like, it's not rocket surgery. Let's just make sure that people see the fun stuff that we're already doing, right? We want our kids to have fun on indoor recess, which is what we're going to use that for. But guess what, man? If there's a family driving by on the highway and they look over and a bunch of kids see a giant playground at a church, they're like, Mommy, Daddy, I want to go to that church. Right. So that's a way to kind of bring in some more people. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. We can get into this in a different session if you guys, and I've got some stuff on YouTube about it, but right. Like, you can do free candy every single week. We literally went out and bought an ice cream machine, which they're not as crazy as you would think. You just like pour powder and milk into like something, I don't know, it spins it up, boom, ice cream comes out, right? Like, it's not like one of those crazy things. You could do that, or free snow cones. You go out and buy bags of candy every single week and then be like, hey, like, kids, like, man, parents, bring your kids out. We got free candy for kids every single Sunday. And guess what kids love? Free candy, right? They love free ice cream. And they just tell people about it. Don't keep it on the inside, put it on the outside. Okay, so what's cool about this ad specifically, right? We had 889,000 impressions, meaning Facebook showed this ad to people who live within driving distance of our church 889,000 times, which is pretty awesome. Right? We had 347,000 people invited. There were 101,000 video views because I had some images and some video that went with it. We had almost 10,700 people that clicked through to the website to learn more about our Easter services. We paid a penny per video view, 33 cents per website click. And surprise, surprise, we were trying to target young families, and our largest demographic engagement were people ages 25 to 34-year-olds. Because when you go into Facebook ads on the back end, you can actually look and see who clicked on the ad, right? And it shows you, right, your biggest demographic was 25 to 34-year-olds, which tells me, hey, we nailed the ad. We did it right, right? The people we were trying to attract clicked on the ad the most, right? And so our targeting and messaging were on point. I will tell you this is something that I see a lot of churches make a mistake on. Whenever you're setting up the targeting for your Facebook ad, what most people want to do is they want to get really, really, really specific about the people that they are creating their ads for. And this seems to make sense on the surface, right? So you think about it. Hey, if you're trying to reach, let's just say, young families, right? Parents who are between the ages of 33 and 35 who have elementary school age kids, right? Then it's really easy to go, cool, let's just tell Facebook, right? Because if you guys have run Facebook ads before, you see how much targeting is on the back end, right? So you're like, cool, okay, we're going to target people who are 33 to 35 years old, who have kids who are between the ages of 4 and 12, who like orange juice but hate apple juice, and they live within 2 miles of the church, and they love the Washington Commanders, and they hate the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, actually, I got more amens than I thought. Okay. Okay, I thought some people. So we've got some things in common. I also hate the Cowboys. It's all good. But so here's what's interesting about that. We got more amens about football than we did about everything else. I get it. Trust me. I love me some football. Right. So here's what's interesting. When you start to do that, right? So you have all these people who live within driving distance of your church, and Facebook will actually tell you, like, you can go in there and say, hey, I'm going to run this ad. You can drop a pin on your church and you can pull it out wide and go, oh, okay. If we run this to 10 miles, right, then it looks like this, we're going to reach 444,000 people who are on Facebook who live within 10 miles of our church. That's pretty cool. But here's what happens when you say, okay, just run it to people who live within 2 miles of our church. Right? It goes like this. They're like, just run into people who are 33 to 35. You're like, right? And they have elementary school age kids. Like, and they hate the Dallas Cowboys. It's like, there's nobody left. Right? So like, what happens then? You go out there and you go run Facebook ads and you're like, Abbo, I did everything you said to do and it didn't work. Right? And it's like, yeah, because if you mess up the targeting, nothing else works because you ran it to nobody, right? Nobody saw your ad. So when you're setting up the ads, run it wide open. Okay. And here's what I mean. When you set up it, whether it's an Easter ad, whether it's an invite ad, prayer ads, we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, make sure to run these ads to everyone who lives within driving distance of your church. And don't do any more targeting than that, just geo-targeting, right? Just the people who live within that driving distance. So for most people, driving distance is about 10 to 15 miles, right? Now, if you live in like downtown Manhattan, that might be 1 mile. If you live in LA, that might be like 5 miles. But outside of like New York, LA, maybe Chicago, right? Like everybody else is probably in that 10 to 15 mile range. Now, I've worked with some churches who are in rural areas and they're like, hey, people will easily drive 30 to 45 miles to get to our church. Great, extend that radius out, right? But for most people, it's about 10 to 15 miles. For me in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I run it at 15 miles, right? And that typically reaches about 500,000 people. And then what's cool about that is that's a really large pool of people. So Facebook can just go crazy and show my ads to all these different people. And then Facebook's algorithm is actually really smart, right? Remember how we were talking about what it does like with all the likes and comments and shares on your organic posts? Well, Facebook does the same thing on your ads, right? So when people see something like this, most of the time they don't even realize it's an ad because they just go, whoa, that sounds dope, right? Like if they have kids, right? Now, a lot of other Christians like get frustrated that we had helicopter candy drop and, you know, that we got all this stuff like free ice cream for kids. Like who does that, right? But it's usually just the other churches and Christians that comment the bad stuff. All the parents are like, this is awesome. Like we're coming on Easter, right? So they start liking and commenting and sharing it on their personal profile, right? And then people are like, dude, what a great idea. This is amazing, right? Then their kids come out, their kids have an amazing time. Then they beg them to come back every single Sunday, right? That's the best way to get parents. How many of y'all know that, right? The best way to get parents, get their kids, right? Like, man, give them free ice cream, give them free candy. All right. So what's that?
How far out are you?
I run 15 miles out from the church.
I'm talking about time.
So that's a great question. On an event, I typically run it about 2 weeks out, right? And it just depends on budget. Right. So for this one, they gave me $5,000. So I spent $4,600 on Facebook ads. I spent $400 on like some print materials, a couple other things. Right. So and I started running this about 2 weeks out. And the reason I like to do that is if I'm just inviting somebody to a specific Sunday, meaning like if this Sunday we were going to be talking about why do bad things happen to good people, I wouldn't start advertising it last week because then if they show up Sunday and we're not talking about that, like, wait a second, I came for the bad things, the good people thing, right? So what I normally do is if it's something like that, I'll advertise it. I'll start like the Monday before Sunday, right? So boom, the ads go on if I'm trying to get them to come out that Sunday. If it's an invite ad and you're just trying to get people to come like this Sunday, which is basically just running all the time, right? You just kind of leave those running all the time. If you're trying to get them out to a large event, like a Christmas event or an Easter event or like a Mother's Day or something like that, then I like to start 2 weeks out. And the reason I don't go longer than that is because nobody's thinking about it before that. Right. So like the bottom line is like if you're unchurched, right, usually what happens is at some point the week of you go, oh, snap, it's Easter this Sunday. Where are we going to church? Right. That's what most unchurched people, they feel compelled to go to church on Easter. Right. And about Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they start going, oh, shoot, where are we going? Right. So if you're running your ads 3, 4, or 5 weeks out, nobody's paying attention, right? Like it's not even on people's radar, right? So great question. I do about 2 weeks out for a large thing, a week out if it's something smaller. Yeah, what's up? Great question. Great question. So here's the great thing about Facebook ads. There's no set price, right? So like if you go out if you're going to go get direct mail, they're like, hey, if you do 5,000 mailers, it's this price, right? With Facebook ads, you tell Facebook how much you want to spend, right? And then Facebook will show it to that many people. And the cool thing is they will also, like when you type in, hey, I've got, so you go and you say, okay, we're going to run this for 10 days and I've got $100. So I'm going to do $10 a day for 10 days, spend $100. You go in there and you set up your targeting, right? And again, you leave it wide open. Everybody ages 18 to 65 plus who live within 15 miles of the church, right? Then Facebook will say, oh, okay, great. Based on this, right, we're gonna show this to about 4,000 people a day, and you could probably expect about 50 clicks to your website per day, right? And they're actually pretty good. They'll give you a range, like they'll say 50 to 100 clicks, and it's usually like right in the middle. It's usually right about 75, 80, right? If they say, hey, it's between 4,000 and 8,000 people are gonna see this ad, it usually right in there about 6,000. So that's the cool thing is you can adjust the budget based on how many people you're trying to reach, how many clicks you want to get right to your website. And so the cool thing is if you have a big budget, you can go to Facebook ads, right? And you can give them a big budget, right? And if you have a small budget, you can put a small budget. Either way, Facebook's going to work with you, right? Because they're happy to take your money. And the great thing is if you set things up the way that we're talking about today, right, you're going to be really happy with the way that they work, right? Because you're leaving that wide open. You're reaching a bunch of people and they're going to your website to learn more, right? So, and I'll say this, most people are not spending enough money on Facebook ads because I believe there's a window, right? It's probably 18 to 24 months, maybe less, right? Where eventually like everyone's going to start figuring this out and pour like billions and billions of dollars into Facebook ads. Now, the good thing for the church is this actually started to happen, and like Facebook ads like started to rise like this. Like in the industry, people were like, oh, Facebook ads are over. We got to find something else. It just started going up over like this, right? And then something crazy happened, right? And that is Apple came out, and you guys might know about it if you're tech nerds like me, right? Apple 14.5, their iOS came out, and it stopped tracking people on Facebook, right? So it said, hey, Apple said, hey, if you have an iPhone, you're gonna have to opt in to being tracked on the internet, right? And they made the language really scary, right? You ever see that thing like ask app not to track, or it's like, oh yeah, give them, or you can give them all of your information, including like your firstborn kid and all of your, right? And you're like, oh, that sounds awful. I'll just ask them not to track it. Right? Before that, Facebook could track everything. Well, what happened is that killed off a lot of the big brands, right? So all like the Coca-Colas and the McDonald's and the Budweisers and like the Taco Bells who are pouring billions of dollars into Facebook ads were like, oh, they don't work anymore because we can't collect all that data, right? So they took their billions of dollars in ad spend out of the market on Facebook and went and put them into other places. The reason that's good for us is we're not using any of that stuff. We're just targeting everybody 18 to 65 plus who live within driving distance of the church, right? So it doesn't matter for us whether or not we're facing, like, we're not collecting their info. Like, I don't know who's clicking on it, right? Just, man, click. It's all good. They're going to go to my website and plan a visit. And so what happened is Facebook ads have seen this massive resurgence, right, in about the last 12 months. So this is why it's a huge opportunity for the church. Again, other people are eventually going to figure out how to do it, right? Like all the McDonald's and the Coca-Colas, like they're going to figure out some way to start using this again because there's so many people on Facebook. But in the meantime, we have this massive opportunity, right? And so putting as much money, and again, in my personal opinion, putting as much money as humanly possible into Facebook ads is one of the biggest things, biggest opportunities that you can do right now, because like it'll never be this cheap to reach that many people, right? Yeah. What's up? Yeah. Yeah. So here's what I love. As far as like cost, you still get to dictate how much it is, right? So you still say, hey, I'm still gonna run 10 days at $10 a day, right? And Facebook's gonna say, okay, based on the amount of people that live within driving distance of your church, here's how many people you're gonna reach. So it's gonna be smaller, obviously. So for example, I have a friend of mine has a church in a small town in Oklahoma. And they were running like some Easter ads, right? They have about 7,000 people in this town. So it's a small town, right? Not a lot of people out there. And so it's just like, here's the great news. Everybody in the entire town can see our Facebook ads, right? Like, so like with 500,000 people, there's no way everybody in Tulsa is going to see our ads. But if there's only 7,000 people, absolutely, we can make sure every single person on Facebook sees the ad and they see it a bunch, right? And so that's really, really good for us. So I think a lot of times churches have smaller churches, like churches in a small town have kind of an unfair advantage because yes, there's less people to draw from, but all of them can see your ads over and over and over again, right? And eventually like think about, coming to church, right? And then you stay top of mind, right? So maybe they don't come to Easter, but they're looking for something on Mother's Day. And then they're like, oh yeah, that church, remember we saw all those like ads for, right? Especially if you can stay in their newsfeed, keep inviting them to church. So that's a great question. It works really, really well for small communities for that reason, right? Much smaller amount of people, but you can reach all of them. So, and just to give you an idea, like we ran like, so he looked at all this, he was like, Abbo, this is awesome. He's like, but I don't have a helicopter. Like I can't do any of that kind of stuff. Like we don't have free candy. And I was like, great. You guys have a roof? And he's like, obviously. Cool. We're going to do a rooftop candy drop. I need you to go buy a bunch of bags of candy, right? And we're going to throw candy off the roofs, right off the roof and let all the kids like scoop it up, right? Because like kids don't care how they get candy, right? But the cooler you can make it, the more exciting, the more fun it is. So like a rooftop candy drop doesn't like, it's just me throwing candy, but from a higher elevation, but it sounds really cool, right? And so I think they found like an Easter bunny, like costume somewhere and had the Easter bunny climb up on the roof, which is hazardous, by the way, be careful if you do that, right? And just threw out a bunch of candy. The other thing we found out, by the way, is you either want to give the kids umbrellas, right? Because Jolly Ranchers drop from like 30 feet hurt, or you throw it all on the sidewalk first, and then you release the kids to go get the candy. Okay, just a pro tip: do whatever you want. But we found that out the hard way that year. Right, a couple of crying kids. Right, so no big deal. But that was just a fun way. I was like, hey, small church, didn't have a huge budget, right? They were in a small town, but it's like they bought a couple bags of candy, threw it off the roof, and we advertised the rooftop candy drop, right? And so, and that ended up working out really, really well. The cool thing is that church usually runs about 140 people. They're a church plant. They were averaging about 140 people. On Easter, because of those ads, they had 286 people who showed up to their church of 140, right? Running 140, 286 on Easter. They then ran 180 all the way through the summer, right? So, and a lot of us know this, like if you do Easter the right way and you have a big enough Easter, just kind of like your launch, right? Like if you have a massive launch, right, you're going to average more people after that. It's the same thing with Easter and some of your bigger services. You have a big, huge Easter service, you're going to run more people after that, right? So all summer long, his church basically went from 140 to 180 because he had such a big Easter, because we just advertised a rooftop candy drop and a bunch of people came out, that had a ton of salvations, a bunch of rededications, really, really incredible time. And we ran it in a small town with a small budget that had nothing but a rooftop and a couple bags of candy. Does that help? Yeah, what's up? Yeah, I'll tell you this. Just kind of another pro tip. It's actually a horrible idea. It's a really cool it's a really cool hook, right? But like when you throw candy out of a helicopter, right? Those blades are throwing wind everywhere, so the candy just goes everywhere. Like and so like literally, like we had the Easter bunny who was like had a harness in and was like hanging out, which I was like, what if the Easter bunny fell out of that helicopter? Like we'd be the only church, like probably in America, to murder the Easter bunny on Easter Sunday in front of thousands of kids. That could probably be horrible. Luckily, it didn't happen. It was all good. Yeah, we would have got people talking, right? Word of mouth marketing. Sure, everybody would have covered it. I don't know if you can recover from that. You murdered the Easter bunny, just shut the doors, right? Move on, rebrand something. But you throw all that candy out, right? It's just like going everywhere, and this is a big mess. And then, anyway, it can be crazy. So, yes, you can get his number. The rooftop candy drop might be a much better way to go, but it's whatever. I'll say this: we only did it once, right? It was. All right, let's move on from Easter here. So I'm glad you asked. I almost forgot to tell that part. Our church has been around at that point. I think it was 28 years. We had the largest church service in the history of the church. So it's large, and there was no way to track everybody, because here's what happened. I started looking at all those ad numbers, and I was like, hey guys, like I go to our kids department. I'm like, hey, remember the 15,000 Easter eggs and everything we did, and the helicopter we got and stuff? The ads have been going crazy. And not only is Facebook showing them to a lot of people because I'm spending a bunch of money on there, but the amount of likes, comments, and shares are insane. So like, you guys need to get ready. And they're like, thanks, we know how to do our jobs. I was like, cool, except I'm telling you, there's going to be more like young families trying to check in their kids for the first time than you've ever seen in your entire life. You guys need to get like some iPads or something. They're like, we have a great system. I'm like, yeah, just one more time, let me please try to tell you, let's find a better way. And they didn't believe me, right? And so on Easter Sunday, I was leading worship, so I didn't have to deal with that stuff, right? So I just came out. I'm like, wow, there's so many people here, because there was a long line that went from our kids' check-in desk all the way through the lobby, down the hallway, and out into the parking lot and halfway across the street. And I was like, whoosh, I bet somebody wished they would have got those iPads, huh? That's the bummer. And so the kids' workers came up and they're like, Abbott, great job, but we hate you, right? And I laughed. And I sipped my coffee, and I was just like, well, maybe on Mother's Day, you guys will listen to me, right? So we somewhat broke our church. We maxed out the main sanctuary, so we didn't have any more chairs. We had to close the doors. We got no more room in the inn. We're so sorry. Then we maxed out our overflow sanctuary. We didn't have any more seats in there. And then we got word that we had to, the fire marshal was making us shut down the kids check-in because we were 3 times over the legal limit of how many kids we were allowed to have in the kids building. Right. So on Easter Sunday, we had about 1,000 people who were stuck outside the church, who couldn't get a seat in our sanctuary, couldn't get a seat in the overflow sanctuary, and couldn't check their kids into kids' church. So great problem to have, but still a problem. Yeah, what's up? Yeah. So actually, like creating like a Facebook event instead of a Facebook ad. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's always a good thing. In fact, I did that for this one as well. Yeah. You can invite people to the event. I don't think it works as a strategy if you're only doing that, right? Like I think it's kind of a supplemental strategy, but it doesn't cost anything. So why wouldn't you create a Facebook event, right? Because like Facebook, a lot of times, like they'll go in and they're always changing how it works and stuff, but Facebook events a lot of times will remind people, right? And then you can see like, oh, hey, like Caleb Steele is interested in this event, or Caleb Steele's going to this event. And it's like, oh, if Caleb's taking his kids, I know my kids are going to want to go, right? So yeah, you can boost that as well. And it's not bad. The reason I don't like it is because I like to get like a plan your visit, right? Which we're going to talk about here in just a minute. And so what we want to do is I want to send people from Facebook to a landing page, right? Give them the option to plan a visit. So now I have their name, email, and phone number so I can follow up with them, right? And I can call them ahead of time and say, hey, man, John Smith, dude, I'm so excited about meeting you on Sunday. I saw that you planned a visit for this Sunday. Man, I just want to call, introduce myself. My name's Chris, right? Like, man, when you get here, I just want to give you a heads up. Here's a great place to like park and that kind of stuff. Man, do you have any questions about like, what to wear or something like that? And then people are like, oh yeah, what should I wear? I'm like, oh, wear whatever you want, man. Like, like jeans and t-shirts, all good here, bro. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Right. But it gives me a chance to connect with them beforehand. And now I have a much, much higher chance of them actually showing up on Sunday, right? Than if I just showed them an ad and hoped that they saw it and remembered to show up. Right. So great question. That's a great idea, is to do a Facebook event. But I wouldn't do that as your only form of outreach. I would do that as like a supplemental piece along with all the other things that you're doing as well. Yeah. Great question. And you can boost it too. In fact, I did I think I put $200 behind the Facebook boost on that Easter one, right? Spent $4,600 on the ad itself. I ended up spending $200 on that. I went a little bit over my budget. I think I spent like $5,200, right? But after we broke the church, they're like, okay, I guess it's okay, right? So, but like I said, we did change it the next year and not do that. So, here's this is one, like, so if you're trying to do something like more of like either a sermon series thing or just kind of a general like invite. So I created this. I invented a holiday. Now, I think this actually is a holiday now, but at the time, I'd never heard of it. And so I just thought I invented it. So, hey, this Sunday is International Go Back to Church Sunday. Did I just make that up? Yep, sure did. But if you're reading this, it's not an accident, right? What if this Sunday is the day everything changes for you? What if this Sunday is the day you can finally find what you've been looking for? You can wear whatever you want, drink coffee in the sanctuary, meet some great people. We don't judge, we help people win. Now, I know that a lot of churches or a lot of people, like unchurched people, think that churches are judgmental, right? That everybody can judge. So they say, hey, we don't judge, we help people win, right? Help people win is like the tagline of our church. So I kind of put it in the ad copy there. So nothing crazy, but just kind of like, hey, just being funny, like, hey, it's International Church, Go Back to Church Sunday, right? And it's like, hey, if you're seeing this, it probably is International Go Back to Church Sunday. Why not come back? Right? And the reason is because in Tulsa, we have a lot of people who are drugged to church when they're kids, right? But the second they had a choice, they stopped going to church. So for them, it is going back to church, right? Whereas another friend of mine, like we ran some ads in his where it was 96% unchurched in his city. We didn't say International Go Back to Church Sunday because people had never been there before, right? So we had to switch the strategy and the messaging, right? But based on the people that are in Tulsa, that's how we decided to kind of target this, right? So this had 205,000 impressions. So we reached 71,000 people, ended up having over 2,000 clicks to the website, paid 32 cents per click. Total investment was $674. Ran it for a couple of weeks. And again, it was hard to track all of the attendance that week, but my pastor told me it looked like an ocean of people in the crowd, even during the early service, right? So afterwards, he was like, "Hey, great job! I could definitely see there was like an ocean of people out there, even during the early service. That was awesome, right?" Which was good because at the time I was like, "Hey, man, there's these things called Facebook ads. I think we should be running some," right? So it was like one of the first Facebook ads I ever ran for my church. And I convinced him, and he was like, "How much money do you want?" And I was like, "As much as you'll give me." He's like, $500 a month. And I was like, "Okay, let's do it." Right. So we did this. The great thing was once he start working, he started increasing that budget. Right. They also cut my budget sometimes. So it's zero. Right. And I had to get creative and figure out what it is. I know you guys know about that. Right. So the cool thing was, though, as I begin to show results, right, they started saying like, okay, we're like, man, let's go all in on this thing. And keep investing. So these are some friends of mine, right? Church planners. They'd actually been in the city for 5 years, right? But they were moving buildings. Some of you guys know, like, if you ever move building, typically what happens if you're a church plant and you move buildings. I've been a part of 3 different church plants that all did this. We moved a building and we lost half our people. right? Like literally like one Sunday, and then the next Sunday you lose half your people. One of the church plants I was at, we literally moved buildings and we were a block down the street. Like I could literally throw a rock from the old building and hit the new one, right? Like even if you showed up to the last one, you'd be like, oh, where is it? You'd look down the street and see all the people a block down and all the signs and everything. We still lost half our people. Right. So Wes called me up, was like, dude, man, like, I'm not sure. Like, I think I'm going to do some magazine ads because we're moving from an elementary school to a high school. And I was like, well, I don't know about you, but nobody reads magazines where I'm from. Right. And so I don't think that's a good idea. What if we just did some Facebook ads? So we ran a series of Facebook ads advertising the new building. And here's what we did. We divided the messaging up into two ways, internal and external. So for all the internal people, we started announcing for several weeks, hey, we're moving buildings. Well, this is going to be amazing. Here's our first service in the new building. Here's what we're doing. It's amazing. For all the people outside, right, we were like, hey, it's our grand opening, right? Like here. We didn't say we're moving buildings. Said, hey, it's our grand opening because it was our first service, the grand opening in the new building. And so we put out a bunch of ads that was like this. Now, this is actually a selfie video of Wes and Jen with them just being fun, like kind of funny and inviting people out, right? And we said, hey, what's up, Tampa? Man, we do things a little differently around here. We don't believe in boring services or judgmental people. We're a church where you can come just as you are and wear whatever you want. We believe that real, authentic relationships is what church is all about. Will you come be a part of our grand opening at Wharton High School this Sunday on August 19th. Click on the Learn More button to get more details. Now, we ran a series of these ads for 4 weeks. This is the one we ran the last week. That's why we said, hey, this Sunday, August 19th, right, coming up. So here's what's cool. They were running 350 people when we first started running these ads. Then I have a text somewhere where like I was like, hey, you know, what were the numbers? And he's like, dude, this is insane. So the very first week, they went from 350 to 375, advertising the grand opening in their old building. Right. So he's like, dude, like we had 375, like we jumped 25 people. That's insane. Right. 350 to 375. The next week, they ended up hitting like 500. Right. The week after that, it was like 550 or whatever. And then on the day of the grand opening, they had 800 people. Right. So what happened is we ran this for 4 weeks. That church of 350 went from 350 to 800 in 4 weeks, but they settled at 700. Right. So the crazy thing is, so like we all know, like, hey, you can have some big services, right? Like I was telling you about my buddy in the small town who went from 140 to 286 on Easter, but then settled at 180 all the way through the summer. Right. They went from 350 to 800 in 4 weeks, but settled at 700 and then ran 700 for several years. Right. So it's just kind of showing you like the power of inviting people out to something, but also kind of creating an event out of it. Right. So with this one, we created, I might have to, golly, we're running out of time and I don't want to miss out on prayer ads, which is a whole nother thing. So let's do this. Andrew, do you think it'd be better to keep going with this funnel for the next 30 minutes and then cover prayer ads tomorrow, kind of bump some of that? Or do you want me just to rush and kind of get through all of it? Okay. So we'll cover this funnel and then I'll tag what I was going to do tomorrow onto the prayer ads, but we'll make sure to give time for the prayer ads. Okay. 100%. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Let's see how far we can get. Let me just kind of cruise through some of these examples, and we'll kind of skip through some of this. I will tell you this was a cool ad that we ran here. One of the things we did is I just said, hey, I know how crazy it is, right, being a parent, right? And sometimes you just need somebody to encourage you. Because some days you just feel like you're messing up your kids. Like my kid's going to be scarred for life and completely screwed up because of what I did. So I wrote this ad, said, attention parents, we know how crazy life can get sometimes. All right, there's no roadmap or blueprint when you're raising kids, and it's easy to feel disappointed or discouraged. So we at Guts Church want to say thank you for all your hard work, sacrifice, and commitment. And just in case no one's told you in a while, you're doing better than you think you are. Keep going. Right. And you can see like the ad on the copy on the ad says, attention parents, you're doing better than you think you are. Keep going. Now, the first thing that happened when is I got a call from one of the pastors on church, said, hey, dude, we got to change the ad. There's a grammatical error. You can't end a sentence in a preposition, right? So which I said, BT, by dude, I know. Okay, so I was actually a literary writing minor in college. I do a lot of writing. I do understand that you can't, in English class, end in a preposition. But here's the deal. We're not in English class. My 12th grade English teacher isn't grading this. People talk how they talk, right? So you want to write your ad copy the way that people talk. So the best way to connect with someone is to write your ad copy in a way that sounds like one text message to another person, right? Like when I text my friends, I end in a preposition because I don't care, right? And so like, I'll tell my wife sometimes, hey, babe, you're doing better than you think you are, right? Like, man, it's good. Like, we got this, right? Keep going. Right. And then sometimes she has to be, babe, get off the ledge. Like, we got this. We got kids to raise. What the heck are you doing? I'm like, dang it. All right. Right. Like, I want to let people know you're doing better than you think you are. And what's cool about this one specifically, is, there's no call to action, right? Like, I put a learn more button on there, but learn more about what? I didn't ask them to do anything. Here's what's cool, right? Facebook showed that to 93,000 parents. When this one I did, I actually, and again, this is kind of where it gets a little bit ninja. I didn't target just parents. I targeted everybody. Right? Because everybody's either a parent or plans to be someday or has a parent or knows some parents, right? And here's what's cool. If you're a grandparent, guess what type of church you want to go to? A type of church that cares about your grandkids, that's going to take care of them, right? And that cares about people, right? Like, man, if you're like a millennial or a Gen Zer and you're not married yet, you do plan on having kids one day. So you want to go to a church that takes care of kids, right? And loves on families. And then everybody in between needs encouragement anyway, right? And so it helps everybody. So what happens is you get tons and tons of people that click on it. You're reaching tons and tons of people. I was going after young families, like parents of young families specifically with my messaging, but with my targeting, I left it wide open, right? And so everybody goes, that's what I want, right? So you don't want to shotgun blast and try to hit everybody, right? When you say you are a church that has something for everyone, nobody believes you. Right? Because when was the last time ever that anybody had something that's for everyone, right? We all know, like, we see through that like marketing gear. It's like, no, you're not, right? Like, I know, like, everybody loves driving this car. No, they don't. Some people hate that car, right? Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Nobody has something for everybody. There's no such thing as one size fits all. The best thing you can do is lean into that, right? And you don't say we're a church for this, or we're not a church for this, or whatever it is, right? This is how you do it. You just, like, man, you plant a flag and say, parents, we love you, man. We understand. We know what's up, right? And we had, like, the comments on this one were crazy because people were like, oh my gosh, I'm literally sitting here like sobbing in my car because I was on Facebook and I just saw this and this must be the Lord. I can't believe this. Like, people were saying about how they were like thinking about taking their own lives because they were just, right. And God saw them through this ad. Right. So, like, we're talking about like ministry, not marketing. This is one of the ways that you do ministry. The crazy thing is, I put a learn more button on there and linked it to our kids page. So if they wanted to, they could go to our kids page, learn more about the kids ministry that we have at the church, and plan a visit, because I put plan your visit buttons everywhere. Right. And we had 93,000. The ad was shown 93,000 times to 35,000 people who live within driving distance of our church. Right. We had 1,987 people who either liked, commented, or shared. The average person saw that ad 2.6 times, right? So a little over 2.5 times, right? And we ended up having just shy of 1,500 clicks to our kids page to learn more about our kids ministry. We paid 28 cents per click, right? Spent $422. But here's what I did. It built relationship equity with people who live within driving distance of the church. So I can't go show ROI on a spreadsheet on ministry, right? I can't like go to my pastor and say, Pastor, look at this, right? Like, man, we spent $422 and here's how much relationship equity we just built with all the people that saw the ad. There's no way to measure that, right? So some of this, especially when you're getting into the ministry side of it and you're just building relationship equity, right? And you're just loving on people and you're going all in a relationship, you can't show that in a spreadsheet. Right. So people go, wait a second, like, what are we doing this? Right. But when you start to read those comments, you go, oh my gosh. Okay. I think we just tapped into something here. Right. This is resonating with people. And we know it's resonating because we had 1,987 post engagements. Right. And 1,500 people clicked on the link and went to learn more about our kids ministry, who live within driving distance of our church, who probably have kids. And we didn't even ask them to click. Right. Is that kind of making sense? You guys like kind of seeing like the ministry? Yeah. What's up?
Something like parent was influential in your life, and you're basically forcing asking for all the
Yeah.
content, but you're just doing it in a simple way of like, you're encouraging other parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to be a little bit careful. So like one of the things I used to do is I'd be like, hey, tag a parent, right, or something like that. You know, tag somebody who did this, or tag somebody that needs to hear this and that kind of stuff. And eventually Facebook realized, like, wait a second, this is just a way to get like fake engagement. So yes, you can do that. You just don't want to do it too often because Facebook starts to catch on, and they're like, wait a second, and then they'll kind of penalize you. But yes, it's a great question, and you can absolutely do that as long as you don't do it too often. All right, I'll show one more. This is more of an encouragement ad. It got cut off. I did have a button at the bottom so people could click to go to the website as well. But this one is what I call an encouragement ad, right? So it said, hey, don't you dare give up. Don't you dare quit. Not now, not yet, not ever. Get back up. You've got to fight to finish. Don't you dare quit on your marriage. Don't you dare quit on your kids. Don't you dare quit on your family. Don't you dare let up, shrink back, or give ground. Your time is right now. No one ever said this was going to be easy, but you're strong enough to finish this. You've got what it takes. You will overcome. You won't just quit because, or you won't quit just because it's hard. Climbing Mount Everest is hard. Learning how to walk again is hard, but this isn't that. No matter how many times we get knocked down, we get back up because we don't give up and we never back down, because at the end of the day, when the dust settles and the sun sets, if we don't quit, we win. All right. Now, with this ad, all I was trying to do was encourage people that needed it, right? Every single one of us needs some of this, right? The same way parents needed it in the last ad. With this, I just wanted everyone that was sitting there going, man, I don't know if I can make it, right? I don't know what's going on. And they saw this ad. And it was similar to the last one where people, right? We had even more people who were suicidal who were talking about this, right? We had all kinds of people, right? And again, it like the amount of engagement that it got was crazy. People are clicking on it, sharing. They had no idea this was an ad. Like I paid money to actually like put this out to people, and a bunch of people clicked on it, went to our Plan Your Visit page to learn more about the church. Even though we didn't talk about Plan Your Visit or visiting the church, I didn't mention guts at all, right? Like let's be honest, I didn't even mention Jesus at all. Right? That wasn't the point. I was just trying to let people know, to be encouraged. I wanted to be a light in the darkness, right? And encourage people. Now, if they click on the ad and they go to our website, then they can learn about Jesus, right? Then they can learn about the answer, right? And that kind of stuff. But all I wanted to do here is just connect with people and encourage them, right? Do a little bit of ministry and create relationship equity. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. This is an ad that I ran. All right. And I tested 6 different images on this. Like my thought was like I really love Nike commercials. And I remember I saw this one Nike commercial, I was like a couple years ago. And maybe you guys saw this. I don't know if it was a Super Bowl ad or what, but it was just talking about like, here's to all the women who get up early, who run and do this and, you know, have kids to raise and all. And it was like all this like different stuff. And it just showed like this woman like getting up like super early in the morning, like putting on like her running stuff, like zipping up her running jacket, like putting on like her Nikes. And then she ran outside, and it was still dark outside. So it was like 5 a.m. And the snowplow, right, snowing like crazy. There's snow everywhere. The snowplow's going down her street, and she jogs in right behind the snowplow and just starts jogging behind the snowplow, right? And I was like, chills, right? And I was like, I should go get Nikes, right? I should follow the snowplow. I should start running. Right. It did all the things. But I love that. I love the creative, and I love like the way that it made me feel and everything. Right. And it was just like, man, like I was inspired to start running. I'm not kidding, because of that commercial. I was like, I hate running. Right. Like, but that like made me think, oh man, like that's kind of a cool idea for like an ad. But what if we're trying to get people to run? Like, what if we just actually encourage people? Like, what if all the people out there right now who are thinking about quit about something, right? Every single person's either going through a storm, just came out of a storm, or is about to go into a storm, right? So like, man, what if we just spoke to them and we just showed like, hey, like, man, like we get it. We've been there too, man. Like, hey, keep going, right? You're not going to quit. You're not going to quit on your family. You're not going to quit on your kids, right? Get back up. And this is kind of the culture of our church too, right? So like we have like some different, we call them like, for lack of a better term, guts-isms, right? At my church, one of them is, if we don't quit, we win, right? It's just like, hey, like if you just keep showing up, you just keep coming back. Doesn't matter what the enemy throws at you every single day. You just keep coming back. If you don't quit, you win, right? And so that was the idea behind this ad. And I used some like kind of Nike creative, because I was like, oh, that's kind of like the that commercial that I saw, and I kind of like that. So I split test some different images, and that's the one that performed the best. All right, I'm just going to go through all this. This was cool. This was a church of 120 for their fall festival. We'll just kind of include 37 cents per click. They spent $61. Their fall festival, that church of 120 ended up having over 500 people that showed up to their fall festival. That was pretty cool. Same church a month and a half later had an Easter. They had like a free pictures with Santa. So it wasn't like their Easter, it wasn't like their Christmas Eve service. This was like their free pictures with Santa kind of thing that they did on like December 11th, a couple weeks before Easter, and then invited everybody back. I keep saying Easter. Invited everybody back on Christmas Eve. So they ended up spending $78 on this ad, and they ended up having 11 new families and 47 new visitors on a single Sunday. Right, from $78 in Facebook ads. All right, we talked a lot about this. Gosh, I didn't even get through most of the stuff. We got 13 minutes. All right, let's try to do this. Here's the next part, right? The funnel of the Facebook ads. We've got the landing page. Now, I'm going to show you guys two landing pages, and just to kind of give you guys like kind of an overview of why the landing page is really, really important, right? The Facebook ads, the first part. So you guys see how I kind of crafted a lot of the copy, and we aimed the copy at different people, but we left the targeting wide open. What you want to do now is you want to send people to a strategic landing page on your website. Now, that's not your homepage. It's a specific page that you set up for new people who do not go to your church, where they land after they click on your ad, right? And now you're going to introduce them. So this basically needs to be kind of a coffee shop invite, right? So if you met somebody at a coffee shop and you're inviting them out to your church, you wouldn't talk about like what your worship set list is that week or what the hymn of the week is, right? Or like all the different like small groups that you have and where they're meeting, right? You just kind of tell them like name, location, a little bit about the church, right? Just kind of a brief introduction. So I zoomed in because I know you guys can't see that one. Let's see. This is still a little bit small, but I'll go ahead and read it, right? So when you click on this, I eliminated like the header at the top, right? A lot of websites will have that thing where it'll say like plan your visit, but it's just a bunch of wasted space. So I deleted that. Right. And the first thing I did is I put a video of Katie kind of giving people a little bit of a tour through our church. Basically said, hey, my name's Katie. When you click on the plan your visit below and you come to our church for the first time, here's what it looks like. Right. And then walks into the church so they could actually, it was just one continuous shot. Right. And we sped it up. So she's walking through the lobby and going to the kids check in. Then we spliced in a little bit of B-roll of like, kids having fun in services and that kind of stuff. Right. And then she's like, oh, great. Hey, we've got a coffee bar over here. You can check your kids in here. Man, let's go into service, get you a seat. Right. We're going to service and we timed it. Right. So that like people were putting their hands up and worship, right as a chorus hit on a big song. We did that, it was a little bit strategic. Boom, hands go up, and it's like, hey, here's what a service looks like, right? And the video is about a minute something, right? And it's just kind of an intro to the church, and I put that first. Now I know, here's the deal: most people are going to see that video, they're not going to click on it. Right? They're just going to go, who's this chick? Guts. That's weird. Well, you come to Guts with me on Sunday. They're going to scan the rest of the page, but they're going to come back to the top and watch that video. Right? So that's why I put it first. Right. A lot of times I read a statistic one time from, I think it was Gray Matter Research that said, and I want to say it was 43% of website visitors are there looking for locations and service times. And I was like, if that's anywhere close to true, we need to put our locations and service times at the top everywhere. Right. So I put the service times up there. Now, I think I read that later and ended up putting our locations up top once I learned that as well. But this just has, you'll notice with the copy, notice there's a lot of white space. Right? Notice there's not a lot of, like, I didn't put a wall of text and a whole bunch of paragraph. It's because on the internet, we've all been trained that most of the stuff on the internet is not relevant to us and it's not valuable. So we've all kind of like trained our brains to just scan. So when we see something, that we immediately scan a page to see if it's relevant to us. And then if it is, then we go back up and read it. So people are just going to kind of like scroll through your page real quick and scan and see like the headlines and the subheadlines. So you have to create like what I call snack size or bite size information. So bullet points are a great way to do that. Headings like a header one or like a subheader is a great way to do that as well. Right. So say, hey, first time at Guts, don't want to go alone. Or maybe you've been a few times and you'd like to ask a few questions, tour the property, or connect with some staff and leaders. Right. Schedule your visit now and we'll reserve a parking spot for you up front, meet you at the front door, introduce you around, help you get your kids checked into kids church, give you a tour of the church, and save seats for you in the service of your choice. So schedule your visit right now. We can't wait to meet you. Now, when we started doing Plan Your Visit, which we'll talk about in the next session here a little bit, one of the things that was really interesting is I thought we were going to reach people. I thought we were going to reach church people who like wanted to actually like connect, right? Because like me, I'm like, hey, if I'm going to church, like I'm a little bit more of an extrovert. I like meeting new people. So like if I go to a church, I would love to like connect with somebody. I'm like, yeah, hey, like man, show me the church offices and like where do you guys meet? Like, man, do you guys have whiteboards? I love whiteboards. Like, what's going on? Like, man, show me with the kids. Like, I want to see everything. But like my wife is like, I would never sign up for that in a million years. I don't want to talk to people, right? Like I want to come in like in the middle of the first song, maybe the second, like sit in the back, check out a service and then leave. And then we'll talk about it at lunch, whether or not we ever want to go back, right? But I'm like, oh, we should show up early and meet the staff and meet the pastor and hang out afterwards. They're doing pizza with the pastor. I'm in, let's do it. Like, right? So it's not for everybody. I thought we were going to reach people like me. What we found out was it was the exact opposite. Churched people who are looking for a new church home because they just moved into the area or something, they just show up to church because it's not weird for them. Unchurched people are so fearful and intimidated by the idea of coming to a church that it takes usually like an act of God to get them there, right? They're going through a huge, like maybe they just had a kid or they just, went through a divorce or they just got married or something happened, right? And they're trying to figure something out. And they're like, and like what's going on in their life overshadows the awkwardness of showing up to a church for the very first time. What this does is it lowers the barrier of entry so that now people can show up and it's not that scary because you're basically going to have a best friend waiting for you at the front door, right? It's like, oh, I can plan a visit and they're going to like set all these things up for me and save seats for me and stuff. So it's crazy. When we started doing this, the first month, excuse me, we increased our first-time visitors in the first month by 42%. We increased our first-time visitors in the second month by 60%, in month 3 by 87%, and in month 4 by 113%, right? And then my pastor said, okay, whatever we're doing right now, we need to teach churches how to do this. And we had a big conference, flew in a bunch of his friends. I taught them how to do it. They started getting the same results. And then we started a church network, started teaching this to churches, which is how I got started a long time ago. Right. And it was all just because it was like, I bet we could get people who go to the website from a Facebook ad to sign up for Plan Your Visit. And then we could just host them when they show up. Because I know like our church is amazing at hospitality. They just got to show up. We got to know that they're there. We got to meet them. And that's the way to do it was through Plan Your Visit. So here's, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what the landing page looks like, right? When you scroll down, we did some pictures of the church. I was strategic about how I picked those pictures. I wanted like friendly people drinking coffee, right? I wanted some young people to get some of the millennials in there. I wanted young families. I wanted kids having fun so they don't think it's like a staunchy, boring church, right? Like, man, like I wanted like the teen, like I also wanted like some of the lights and smoke because I like that stuff. So I'm like, hey, if you like that stuff, you'll probably like our church. If you hate lights and smoke, you're probably going to hate our church. The music's loud. That's just kind of how it is. It's not a perfect fit for everybody. So let's just let them know. That way we attract the people that would like it and we repel the people that wouldn't, right? Because they'd be better off at trying a different church that's more their speed. I'm great with that. So we had some pictures of that, had the crossing guard high-fiving a little kid, right? So you can wear whatever you want, drink coffee in the sanctuary and listen to a relevant message from Pastor Bill Scheer. We don't judge. We help people win. This Sunday at 9:30 and 11 o'clock. Right. And you guys can tell I start to say the same things in my Facebook ads and on my landing page and in my posts and everything that I'm doing. Right. And then we had a bunch of pictures of kids, right? Because I want them. And again, I strategically chose all this. One is in a bus on the way to camp. Right. That was our kids pastor at the time and all the kids having a blast. Because again, I want to show parents, this isn't boring church. Your kids are going to love it here. Right. They're going to think you're a rock star when you bring them out to church. And then like in the bottom corner, right, I got like, okay, here's a picture of a church service. Looks like fun. I'm like, dude, I wish like I had this like old, like creepy lady, whatever. My mom we'd go to church once a year. Like whenever my mom made like a deal with the Lord. And I think it was like, hey, if we just pay our bills this month, I'll take the whole family to church. So every time my mom woke us up when we were little and like put our little like clip-on ties, I was like, Mom, did you make another deal with God again? Good gracious, leave us out of your deals with God. Right. Because the lady in our kids ministry was just straight creepy. Right. But that looks like way more fun. We also wanted to show like cute kids, like, hey, here's some of the cute, fun kids your kids are going to hang out with. Right. And then we also want to show leaders pray for people. It's like, hey, it's not all free candy and ice cream. Like, man, your kids are actually going to learn the word. Right. We're going to have people that are going to pray for them and they're actually going to get closer to God while having fun at church. So I strategically picked those pictures for that reason. Right. And then down here, again, using bullet points and headlines, I said, hey, our kids' church has fun services, engaging music, age-appropriate Bible lessons, a rock wall playground, basketball court, zip line, and free ice cream. Where was that when we were kids? Haha. Just click on the link below, and our amazing Plan Your Visit guru will set everything up. Right. So you can see I'm trying to make everything kind of fun, kind of lighthearted. I'm leaning into the fact that we've got free ice cream and we've got fun stuff for kids, but it's also we have age appropriate Bible lessons. Right. And they're going to, enjoy fun services and engaging music. We had 3 campuses at the time. So I put all 3 campuses on there. And then I have this. Here's what I realized that I tested this a bunch. If you say like, here's our recent, like, check out a recent sermon, nobody clicks on it. Like nobody. Nobody cares. Nobody like came to your page, right? They were on Facebook looking for, I don't know, other stuff. You interrupted them with an ad that made an emotional connection. They clicked on it. They went there to learn more about your church. They didn't come to listen to a sermon, right? So if you say that, but if you just change it to test drive a service, people are like, oh yeah, I do want to test drive a service, right? Then they click on it and they end up watching a bunch of a sermon, right? Because, and it's just a little bit of language, right? It's just a little bit of copy, but it's like, hey, nobody wants to listen to a sermon. Everybody wants to test drive a service. Like, yeah, like maybe this service sucks. I don't know. Maybe I won't like this church. I should check it out. Right. So if you, that's just a little bit of a hack. You put that down there. If you change watch a sermon, right, or recent sermons to test drive a service, people will click on it and actually watch it. And then I just kind of did a little bit of kind of what I did with my friend BJ. I told you guys, instead of inviting people, I just said, hey, seriously, you're coming to Guts this Sunday and we can't wait to meet you. We won't take no for an answer. And it worked. A bunch of people plan a visit. We had at one point, we had 447 plan your visits in 4 months from this page right here. So obviously, you know, with gosh, how are we doing on time? 3 minutes. Okay. Let me cruise through one more and just kind of show you guys. If you guys are trying to, there we go. Okay. So if you are, we had a question about like a sermon series right earlier. So if you're trying to run an ad to a new sermon series, here's what you have to do, both in your ad copy and especially on your landing page, you have to answer questions people are actually asking. Okay. Now this means, right, if you're like, hey, have you ever wondered why Peter dropped his nets in Luke 5 and immediately followed Jesus and left his boat? No, nobody woke up in a cold sweat this morning going, if only I knew why Peter left his nets. They were breaking. He had all that fish. It must have been a lot of money. Nobody cares, right? Nobody's thinking about that, right? And this is the problem, right? It's like the church has the unfortunate habit of advertising sushi as raw dead fish, right? We're like, hey, we got raw dead fish here. Anybody want those wrapped in rice with some seaweed on there? Got raw fish eggs on top. It's like, oh, no. Right. But I love sushi. Right. You got to change it. You got to package it a little bit differently. Right. So instead of just saying like, hey, have you ever wondered, right, about moralistic therapeutic deism? Nope. Nobody has. Right. Caleb and I love talking. Yeah, I know Caleb has, but you're a nerd. And so am I. And when we talk about that stuff, right, I like that. Right. Atheistic moral realism? Nope. Right. Kalam cosmological army? No, nobody asked about that. Right. Some of the theologians did. But not a single person who's looking for a church or woke up in a cold sweat. Instead, what kept them up last night was, I wonder if my husband's going to leave me. Man, when was the last time we went on a date night? You know, it feels like there's a Grand Canyon between me and my husband. You know, ever since like all the job losses, like during the pandemic, he's had to work 2 jobs and he's gone more than ever. I don't see him. Like, I don't know. He doesn't even touch me anymore. Right. Man, the man's like, man, she's always on Facebook. She didn't even pay attention to me. Like, I can't even remember the last time we went to a movie. When we are, she's just on her phone all the time. What the heck's going on? Am I screwing up my kids? Are we going to be able to pay our bills? Right. People are asking like real life questions. Right. So when you come in and you ask and you're writing your copy, you have to make sure you're answering questions people are actually asking, or you'll do all of this work for nothing and nobody will show up on Sunday. Right. Does that make sense? Okay. So in that vein, now this is how easy this is. I actually just got this off of the Life Church open resources, right? So you guys, pretty much everybody knows, if you don't, like, Life Church has open resources. You get all their sermon series, sermon bumpers, all that kind of stuff. So I just went in there and found one. This one's phenomenal, right? And if you go in there and you see like some of the other copy, like it's pretty awesome. It says, make sure we get all this right. It says, have you ever had a question so hard you wouldn't even say it out loud? Or a doubt so big you didn't feel like you could share it, especially at church? Maybe it's time to ask tough questions, to ask the tough questions together in our new series, Ever Wonder Why? Right. And so, and then when we actually put this together, actually listed them underneath there, right? Why do bad things happen to good people? How can a loving God send people to hell? Right. That kind of stuff. Right. And you ever wonder why? And then people go, oh my gosh, I have wondered those questions. Right. Those are the questions people actually are asking. And then I just used the sermon bumper video that they had for free from Life Church, put that down there as well. So if they wanted to, they could go check out that video. Right. Oh, here you go. That's gosh, I don't know if I can see that here. Part 1, why did God let it happen? Part 2, why didn't God answer my prayer? Part 3, why should I trust God? And part 4, why God feels far away. Right. It's time to start asking the tough questions in our new series, Ever Wonder Why. Right. And then we see new series, Ever Wonder Why, and a plan your visit button. Right. So we're kind of talking about why they would want to show up to the sermon series at the top. And again, like if you notice, everything that's there, what we're talking about is we're talking about them, right? Like they're coming, like they have a problem. The answer is Jesus, but they don't know that yet. And we can't tell them if they don't come to church on Sunday, right? Like if you just say like, hey, do you feel like you're about to get divorced? Don't worry, Jesus is the answer. They're just going to click the back button and never check out your stuff ever again, right? But if instead you start to say like, hey, have you been wondering this, right? Have you ever, man, man, let's create a safe place for us to explore some of these questions together. They go, oh my gosh, I have been wondering that, right? Excuse me. All right, we'll finish up this landing page and wrap things up. So service times, location down there, right? And then I kind of put this in there. This is what I call identity messaging, which we could talk a little bit more about tomorrow. But find your people, discover your purpose, plan your visit. All right, you're trying to find your purpose, looking for something different, need a new tribe, plan your visit now. Right. And then we kind of talk about some of the copy that we had earlier, like, hey, here's the deal. We do things a little differently around here. We know it can be a little weird or even awkward visiting a church for the first time. That's why we created Plan Your Visit. When you sign up for Plan Your Visit, we'll actually meet you at the front door, help you get your kids checked into our kids ministry, introduce you around to a few people in the church, save you seats, and we'll even sit with you if you want. We want to make your first visit as easy as possible and actually take time to get to know you and your family. Pretty crazy idea, right? Will you come hang out with us this Sunday? Just click on the Plan Your Visit button below and schedule your visit for this Sunday. Plan your visit now. Excuse me. We had another video from Katie again, just inviting people out to church, right? And then we kind of listed, my slides are being a little bit weird here. Kind of listed in a bullet point, hey, plan your visit now, and here's all the things we'll do for you, right? We had some different pictures in there, and we said, hey, wear whatever you want, drink coffee in the sanctuary, meet some great people and listen to a relevant message from pastor. Say, hey, we don't judge. We don't care if you have tattoos. We don't care how you dress. We don't care if you have a past. We just want to meet you, right? And then this is the last piece here. Kind of wrap it up at the bottom. But this, and I want to take time to read this to you guys, just to kind of show you guys one more thing. Again, we're trying to talk about them. We're not talking about us. Everybody always wants to talk about this. But my pastor always says, nobody cares that your dog died. They care that their dog died. Right? Like that's like people, every single person either going through a storm, just came out of a storm, getting ready to go into a storm. So they got their own stuff going on. Right? So don't talk about you. And this is where so many churches make this mistake. They'll say like, oh, hey, here's Pastor John and Heather. And it's like, Pastor John graduated from such and such, seminary, and he loves long walks on the beach and his dog, Sally, and blah, right? Like, but nobody cares, right? Like they don't care about you, they care about them. And it's not that people are selfish, they're just going through stuff. So instead, if you do something like this, you can actually take a section like this that people are inherently going to read because they want to know two things whenever they're thinking about coming to your church. Who's the pastor? Who are the people, right? They want to know who's the pastor, and they want to know who are the people that go to this. Do they look like me? Are they in the same season of life as me? That kind of stuff. So the first thing they're going to do is look at the pastor. So with this, we wrote it. So it says, hi, my name is John. I believe that you are uniquely wired by God for a specific purpose. And then unless you figure out what that purpose is, you'll never be truly fulfilled. So notice, first line, hi, my name is John. Second line, let's talk about you, right? I believe that you're uniquely wired by God for a specific purpose. Then unless you figure out what that purpose is, you'll never be truly fulfilled. No one else on earth can fulfill the unique calling that God has for you. No one can fulfill your assignment. Maybe you know exactly what it is. Maybe you've been running from it for a while. Maybe you have absolutely no idea where to even start looking for it, but I want to help you find it because I believe that the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who actually do. Plan your visit now, right? So what we did with that copy, right, is we say, hey, here's what I believe about the world and about you personally. And if you believe that too, maybe you should come check out church. Right. And all those people go, oh, my gosh. Yeah. Like, I believe that I was built for a purpose, too. I don't have any idea where to find it. Says, oh, great. I want to help you find it. It's like, oh, perfect. Maybe this would be a good church for me. Right now, the people that are not looking to find their purpose or don't believe that won't come. And that's good. Right. Like it's good to attract the right people. Right. And repel the wrong ones. Because if we're not going to be a good fit, if they're not trying to find out they're in a different season of life, there's a lot of other great churches that could probably help them a lot more. Right. But you take like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I believe about the world. Boom. And here's what I believe about you. And the people who identify with that go, yes. And then they come to church on Sunday. All right. I apologize, Andrew. Sorry, I went over. I know we didn't get to everything, but we'll pick it back up tomorrow here. So thanks, guys.